Hi, welcome back to another great episode of Day in the Life of the Digital Anthropologist. Today we have an amazing guest. We have Dr. Lollie Mancey. How are you?
Super. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining. Today we have another exciting meeting. I keep loving these podcast interviews because I get to meet such a great people. I mean, I already know you, I already know the majority of a guest, but I want for all audience to get to know you. And they're gonna love you because you have such an interesting background and you're the sweetest of all. Thank you so much for doing this.
Agreed. Thank you.
So, can you give us a little background of, who you are or where you currently work at?
Yeah. So, Dr. Lollie Mancey, Lollie Lollie, not Lollie like the lollipop. And I currently work in University College Dublin as the program director of innovation, entrepreneurship, and digital resilience. So it's a big fancy title for saying I have to design and think of the courses for the workplace of the future that doesn't yet exist. So a lot of my students are coming in with business ideas, and it's where that gap in the market is. It's really trying on and trying to cultivate the curiosity and the innovation mindset that is particularly my forte. Yeah. And I'm in Dublin, Ireland as well. I should say that.
Wow, so you get to design courses for the future. That is such a like an important task, and at the same time, so exciting that you could get to be so creative in creating, courses that probably there's not in the market, and that's such a
Well,
good.
it's a little bit like at the moment everyone's an AI ethicist, right? It's a bit like we have trends and everyone goes, "Oh, I'm going to be a consultant and this, that, and the other." And how do we future focus and say, what do I need to be? What does the future need of our citizenship? What do we need to train in, and what does that look like? And so the number one question I'm asked all the time parents is, what should my children study, and I'm like, should it be coding, should it be data analytics? And I'm like, well, probably a decade ago, sure. Now go with whatever they're interested in, but add in technology. So it should be history and technology, philosophy and technology, art and technology, music and technology. So you've got to understand the landscape of where we're going, but we need every subject. We don't just need coders, for example. In fact, coding is probably one of the things that's on its way out with generative AI a little bit. So yeah, it's really interesting, and my role is really to look at the underlying digital transformation of the culture. So I'm a cultural anthropologist that ended up becoming cultural/digital. So it was never didn't exist a while back. It was never a straightforward linear career path. I'm fascinated by inequalities in society. I'm fascinated by the fact that we're all more similar than we are different. And then the other thing I'm really obsessed with is how do we adapt to a changing cultural landscape? And at the moment, that changing cultural landscape is a digital technological one, certainly one that's coming. So all of a sudden, I'm finding lots of people want to talk to me. It's really nice that finally people want to hear from me. But I've been banging on about human flourishing in technology for a long time, and people will be thinking, oh, that's just isn't it just a case of we use our phones too much? But it's a lot more nuanced than that. And some of the conversations I'm having with people that know an awful lot more than me, which is very exciting, are telling me about things that are being created, things are coming, and I'm trying to preempt that to say, okay, if all of these things do become possible, what will it look like for the humans in terms of the human interaction and our human experience, and what will the world feel like? So it's not really crystal ball gazing, but I could probably say around up to a decade, I can kind of see roughly where things are going. So I'd be a bit of a futurist there.
Wow, that is so incredible. That's gotta be the most exciting thing to do every day and get to talk to all these awesome people and get to, uh, project and think about what's gonna be the future. And yeah, you're right. Coding it's part of yesterday, so it's very old now. So what
Yesterday, we all have a good future. But I think also, like, my PhD was 20 years ago in organizational learning, and at the time it was in development. And what I learned was about organizational dysfunction. It's no different now. It's the same stuff now, same size, difficulty, same challenge, create a positive organizational culture. and then add in a sprinkling of generative AI at the moment to really, rock the boat with people going, oh my God, is it going to take my job? It's not a Terminator, it's not coming in like that. But at the same time, I am a tech optimist. I do foresee we could use it for some very transformatory stuff. And I also think work is pretty broken for most people. The work-life balance is an aspiration. And I understand in the States, people predominantly don't even take their annual leave, their vacations.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts. I want to go to the model of France where they take it's legal to send an email before 9 and after 5, and you have a whole month of August off. That's the dream.
That's the dream. You can only dream about that. So
Yeah.
what is to your typical day? Like, what time do you wake up? What does your morning routine look like as a digital anthropologist?
Yeah, actually the first 20 minutes of the morning is the most important, right? So, from everything that I know about algorithms and dopamine and coming out of the dream state and all the neuroscience to do with that the first 20 minutes of your day, whatever time that is, for me, it's usually around 8 o'clock in the morning, unless I have an early start. I'll wake up. If I pick up my phone in those first 20 minutes, I'm done for. My brain is now programming to seek dopamine from my devices. So, you're vulnerable in those first 20 minutes. So I usually would take a little bit of reflection time. I'm very European, have a cup of tea. And I sit and think about, what's coming up for the day. I'm a really good to-do lister, like I'll have a list already pre-written the night before, and I know pretty much what I'm working through. Obviously, there'll be extra stuff added to it. So I also then have this thing at work where I do something called, that's in corporate terms, it's called eating the frog, which is do the thing you don't want to do most the first. Just get it out of the way. So already I've got, a positive morning feeling. I've had my cup of tea. I'm like, oh God, that thing. And it's usually admin or something. And I'm like, right, just bang it out and get it done. Then I have a sense of achievement. So my students would come online. I'm both in person and online. So both, depending on where I'm at. But if they're online, I'm online at 9:30 and I have them till 1:30. And then I take some lunch, take a walk if I can. And then come back, and then I have the afternoon sitting, as it were. So the afternoons then is meeting other entrepreneurs, mentors, planning for speaking engagements, usually desk bound, which is the sad part. But if I can do any of those meetings walking, I will, weather precluding, of course. So I'll do walking meetings with headphones on and try and get as many steps in as possible. I try and hit at least 10,000 a day, which is just better for my brain. We didn't evolve to be seated, to be sedentary. It's not good for us. Yeah, that's pretty much my day. And then, a couple of weeks ago, I was in Atlanta, Georgia, speaking to Porsche. That was lovely. I did 3 days in the States and flew back. Tomorrow, I'm going to Belfast in Northern Ireland. Next week, I'm going somewhere else, So in Europe, we're very lucky. Everything's usually a couple of hours away, so it's quite easy to navigate. So I'm starting to do more traveling with my work, which I love, but then I have to watch my work-life balance. So 1 day a month, I try and have a bed day. Yesterday was it was Sunday, and it was the most glorious day because it was raining all day and I'm in bed all day. That's it. I'm staying off work and I'm just catching up with all those binging box sets and everything else I want to do. And there's no guilt. The phone is off, no social media. It's just me and I'm relaxing. And, I think it's more and more important that we detox away from everything that we're doing. I see people using LinkedIn, Monday to Sunday, and answering emails and prepping for the week ahead. And, if we have to prep on a Sunday for the week that's coming, something is very wrong with the way that we're working. And I hear something is very wrong all of the time.
Wow. I love your routine. From the moment that you start, you have the first 20 minutes, you don't use your phone. But I love it. I love everything. There's so many too much things to unpack that it's like, oh my God, I kind of need to copy her routine because I'm loving it. And yeah, you completely have something different every day.
Someone was asking me, was at a speaking engagement last week in Birmingham in the UK, and someone was saying to me, how are you so positive? And I said, you can actually train your body. Through neuroplasticity, you can train your body to be positive. I'm not talking about positivity of hi, every time you come on board with anyone, you're like, very over the top. What I'm talking about is like a positivity of the glass half full. So I really watch how much news I consume. I watch where I get my information from. It's an awful lot of echo chambers out there you can get dragged into. What's the best use of your time, and also to know your triggers. I know if I'm getting a bit cranky, I'm like, okay, I need to, I just need to dislocate, for detach from everything. And I think that's really important. And as we move forward, we need to remember that our brains weren't designed to work at this particular stage, to work at this in this way. We get fatigued, we get brain fatigue. And you need to be really, really careful. And if you're giving yourself content all of the time, we don't do daydreaming, we don't get bored anymore. You just, all of your time you're giving to devices, social media, technology, information, news, you've got something coming at you all of the time. That's one way that your brain's going to turn around and to fight back. You'll suddenly find one day you just can't remember anything. And, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Your brain's tired. It needs to rest. It's really, really important. So, self-care isn't necessarily a bubble bath. Self-care is actually a walk in the park with without a podcast, hanging out with friends, all of the stuff that we do, whatever you need to do to recharge your social battery, there's a period of time you need to be on your own. And that's really important. So you need to detach. And then on the flip side of that, too much time on your own is not good for us either. So with the anthropologist hat on, we are designed to be social beings. So we need to be social as well, so you need a look, it's all about balance, and none of us have it. None of us. Work-life balance, complete aspiration. I've been talking to people in industry for 20 years. Nobody has it. But you look on Instagram, it looks like they've all got it, but it's not true. So I think the more we can just be aware of, or be conscious consumers of what we're having, going from passive to active with our use of social media, then I think we'll be okay. But just if we're passively consuming everything, we're going to be exhausted, and most of us are tired.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more with everything you said. That is so true. And I'm guilty of that. I need to put more in practice and be more balanced with, my work and personal life and balance. And that's true. That's what I also advise. Detox yourself, and like try to have a weekend of not technology, let your family know, hey, I'm okay. I'm just going to disappear for 24 hours and literally shut down every single technology device. And I highly suggest it. I've done it, and it's refreshing. So how do you keep your skills sharp and stay up to date with the latest developments in digital anthropology? Do you have any specific practices or training you engage daily?
Yeah, I engage daily. To be honest, I love LinkedIn. I just connect to all of the experts that know more, and I'm constantly reading, Substack, or reading things that they're posting. I'd much rather spend my time reading things that people are posting around things that interest me than listen to the news, for example. That will all occur whether I'm involved or not. But the thing that's really interesting at the moment is the sort of the debate aspect. I'm kind of concerned that we're losing our ability to have healthy debate with people that disagree with us. And I don't want to only be in an echo chamber of people that agree with me, as lovely as that is. And that would be, people on LinkedIn are going, oh, yeah, really interesting post. And I'm like, thanks. You can start to go, yeah, this is really great. This is how the whole world feels. It's really not. So, we've still got 2.7 billion people in digital darkness who aren't on the internet. This isn't an everyone global thing in terms of so when we're looking at, how we navigate social dynamics, the globalized digital networks and all of the gorgeous things that we talk about, and the ethics of technology, we've also got to remember that the human technological interface is not an everyone experience, right? It's so, like, for us, I would talk about the fact we're becoming natural born cyborgs with our phones. It's becoming integrated into us. We're looking now at anthropomorphic companions as an antidote to loneliness, and indeed AI companions for all sorts of different things in terms of AI assistance. But that's, that might be your experience or my experience, or where it might be going for some of us. That's not for everyone. So the things I'm trying to fight for at the moment are, not to have everybody connected to a point whereby the tech companies are dictating, how we run our lives, but that we have more of a say, that we have a look at who's making who's coding and where the biases are. We know that, generative AI is wildly biased, and that doesn't work for us in a lot of ways. And there's gorgeous examples, of sort of algorithms that will, the best candidate for the job is gone from the algorithm. The best isn't necessarily the person from the business school. The best might be the person with experience or the resilience or whatever else. So we've coded it wrong. In terms as well of, The Battle for Your Brain, Nita Farahani's work, gorgeous seminal book about, being really, really careful. And I hate to say his name, but just pop Elon Musk out there. We need to be really, really smart about who we give what control to and for what reasons. Our thoughts have to absolutely stay private. Otherwise, it's a form of, it's Orwellian. There's some stuff already happening in China around social capital and sort of, and devices being created in the West as well around the idea of reading, through an EEG, but eventually something, internal that will be able to predict what you're going to buy or your purchasing power. We're already ridiculously predictive. That's why algorithms work. So we need to be super smart about, the ethics, the privacy, the legislation, and all of that. It tends to be the tech is created, then we fight to legislate for it, and then it's almost like trying to put the lid on the Pandora's box. It's out, so I'm really loving speaking to people about, all of this. I think that in terms of sort of cultural preservation, we have a huge amount to do as anthropologists. We can't just say everyone's hooked into the grid and that's all good. What we have to say is, how is this working for cultural preservation? I do worry about the fact that we will become kind of homogenized, and that we lose our differences. Whilst we're more similar than we are different, I think it's really, really important that we're looking at sort of traditional practices. So tomorrow I'm giving a talk, for example, on agriculture in Ireland and the difference between the digital approach to agriculture and the traditional approach of farming, and obviously it's got to work somewhere in the middle for both, we saw this in sort of, Monsanto's work and sort of, Terminator seeds and all of that, the next latest thing that's going to come that benefits those companies that actually prevents us from continuing to farm the way that we have to be super, super smart about what technology we allow in to help us to alleviate food poverty and all of the other things, and how we navigate that and the guardrails that we have for that and the impact upon future societies. So some of the work that I do is around sort of consequence mapping, which is like, what is the consequence of this technology in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years time? What are the unintended consequences of it? And trying to sort of map out that for companies, because just because one technology is used now, it could be used in a completely different way in the future. And, what can we put into place and what needs to happen to prevent it being used for, a negative use rather than sort of human flourishing. So as you and I know, we're all about human flourishing, right? So
Yeah,
the anthropologist right in the corner.
yeah, that's
So yes, there's loads of work to be done. So I'm going to be busy for the next 10 years, which is great. And I'm particularly busy in the idea of sort of our changing societal role and what that means. Hand on heart, as an anthropologist, I know community benefits us. It's what we seek. It's what we desire. So if we're using technology that's pulling us apart from community, and you can have virtual communities as well that are highly impactful, or are we using technology that's actually going to help us get together, both physically and in other ways, and virtually as well. So there are more problems than we have solutions for. So that's why we're going to be busy.
Yeah, definitely, totally agree with you. How do you approach to research? Like, can you share like a unique methodology or tools that you use for a current project that you're working on?
Again, going back to, like collaborating with people that are smarter than you, it's all innovation comes from these randomly allocated teams that are just, you'll get the more diversity you have, the more innovation you'll get in the team, and the diversity of ideas, which is really great. So I would find that sort of the projects that I come on at the moment, it didn't used to be this way, but at the moment where I am in my career, they sort of find me, and I get seconded onto things. And I'll be the corner of the digital anthropologist, and then I'll have the people in the room that have different roles. And then it's a case, I think, of I always go back to the customer discovery, the empathy, the customer centric part, what's going to delight and excite the clients or the people using this. And then the next part as well is then, good old ethnographic research of watching people use technology or watching people in that way to sort of see, okay, this is the way they thought it was going to be used, but actually people are using it in a whole different way. And, that's what's interesting about the human condition. We'll always approach things in a way that suits us rather than a way that we're told to do it. So I'm involved in lots of different research at the moment, and I'm none of which I'm spearheading. I'm just involved in lots of being brought into lots of different things for short moments of time because I'm time poor with the amount of things I've taken on, gladly though.
Yeah, that's great. Like I really love that phrase. I say what people use in technology. That is so important. That is the highlight. What people use in technology.
I'll give you an example. So at the moment, Gen Z are using two types of phones, right? So they're using the traditional smartphone. I say the traditional, it sounds strange now, but now it's become traditional for us. Traditional smartphone, which of course is sucking us into algorithms and giving us dopamine and all of the other things. And then they're also using what we would call, in movie terms, a burner phone, a phone that is literally just a phone that just rings you or texts you, right? So the old-fashioned in Europe, it's the old-fashioned Nokia phone, and actually that company's come back around saying, they've just re-released it for the new generation. That phone was gone 10 years ago. And was only used for sort of surreptitious for drug dealing and all sorts of other things. But what's really interesting is Gen Z are using two phones. So they'll have they'll have a smartphone and a burner phone. And I call them the cocaine phone and the kale phone. Cocaine phone is the one giving you the addiction, and the kale phone is the one that's good for you and doesn't do anything apart from play snake, and you can call and text on it. That's it. And they'll use it at different times. So they're doing their own digital detox. The fear that we have against smartphones is we're like, oh, I need to be contacted at all times. That's not our fault. That's our anthropological evolution, which is fight or flight. And we get afraid if we're not contactable. And that's actually what we touch our phone that many times, thousands of times, because we get scared if we can't see it because we don't feel connected and we feel something will happen. So I say to people, the best things you could do for yourselves is take your phone out of your bedroom and put your phone downstairs and put an alarm clock in. And people are like, oh, God, what if something happens? And I'm like, well, then get a burner phone. That's $20 and they can call you on that number, So look, we have to wean ourselves off the habits that are bad. The majority of us look at our smartphones right up until sleep. So you're not giving your brain any time to wind down, and I'm just as guilty. I try to wean off it all, and I try to do good practice. So, in terms of how we use the technology, it's really, really interesting. When this technology becomes a wearable, potentially an earpiece or something here, it's going to be integrated into us more. And the downtime is going to be more complicated. We're already suffering as a human species from being on all of the time. So we're going to have more challenges around that. We might have a do not disturb that could be overridden by an SOS emergency or something. I don't know. But again, like going back to that idea of France, putting into law. I know American people I speak to can't believe it, but I'm like, but after 5 o'clock is your personal time, and if you answer emails, especially for us working across asynchronous time zones, working across with different people in different areas of the world, this is a real challenge to be on all of the time, hence the burnout. That's where it's coming from, the idea of never actually properly relaxing.
Yeah. And I wish I could share, like a video of us talking, because I keep nodding but I am like literally agreeing, and like I know everything you're saying is like completely what is happening, and that's what I'm doing my research also, and it's like because I keep nodding my head like everything you say, because I'm like that is true. What do you find most rewarding about being a digital anthropologist?
Oh God, being everything's so interesting right now. It's so funny because actually, probably a decade ago, I was still having to tell people what an anthropologist is, and then I'm like, I'm an anthropologist in innovation. And they're like, oh, yeah, still not really sure about the anthropology part. I'm like, cultural commentator? I don't know, like people observe people in their, in their home environment, their natural environment, whatever that means. The idea of sort of helping people make meaning, that's the basis of all anthropology. How do we make meaning from things, so how are we making meaning of the world right now? And so I would be very much at the cusp of all of that discussion in Ireland around how are people feeling about technology and generative AI and what's coming, and sort of how are they making meaning of it? And at the moment, there's a lot of fear. So that's very interesting for me to be able to talk to them and address that fear and to some extent alleviate it, but also to address, what's sometimes the elephant in the room, which is, am I going to lose my job to technology? And right the way through all of life, we've lost jobs due to the latest changes or the latest innovations. So, it's not as straightforward as saying, oh, it's like the calculator in the 1950s. And there was actually in America, there was professors that, picketed with placards saying it's the death of thinking. But, this is a similar experience, but ramped up 1,000 times, so it's not the death of thinking, but we are going to have to cultivate curiosity, critical thinking, a healthy mistrust of pretty much everything that we see. And we're not ready for this yet. So it's happening incredibly fast. So I find that the concept or the work of a digital anthropologist now to be incredibly important, because without this, we don't have a commentary on the human plus technological side. We also need philosophers to wade in. And I noticed actually just recently it's in the States, I can't remember which university, I wish I could, but it was only yesterday it came out. The first professor of sort of digital philosophy came out. I think it might be Harvard. I'm not sure, but I was so excited by this. So I was like, I won't be applying for it because I'm very happy where I am. But, the idea that we will have philosophy and technology combined 100%. That's what's needed.
I gotta look into that because that's amazing. I totally want to look into that. Regarding ethical considerations, you were talking that early. How do you navigate the ethical challenges that arise in digital anthropology, especially dealing with sensitive online communities or data?
Yeah, look, the generative AI is biased to the 100th degree, right? So all of human nature, all of our isms and all of our, our predilections in terms of distinguishing one category from another, positive and negative, are all in there. So it is a challenge. I try not to get pulled into too many forums and things like that, because they become echo chambers, or I'm like, is this the best use of my time fighting this person I've no idea who they are, or trying to have a healthy discussion with them. I'm quite careful about, where I put my time. But I think, we have to realize that what we have in generative AI is all of human flaws as well as all of the goodness. So as we learn how to clean the data and we backtrack, which is what's happening at the moment, to have those biases, removed in some way, we can't remove them from the human species. They're always going to be there. So we have some big challenges. And again, going back to this idea of healthy debate, the most important role in any company is the devil's advocate. The person that can say, no, we should maybe think about doing things differently, so that we don't all just follow each other like lemmings off the cliff, And I think that allowing that method of debate where you can have somebody in the room that disagrees with you, but in a healthy way, where you respectfully hear each other and agree to disagree, that's really, really important. And it's something we're losing, especially with the media and the way that things are very, very divisive. One camp or this camp. A camp or camp B. There's always a middle path, and I think unless we cultivate respect for each other as human beings on this earth, I think we're going to be in serious trouble. But again, there's as many as I'm very excited by some of the initiatives that are coming out. All tech is human is one. There's all sorts of groups everywhere that are coming along, so it's like, yeah, we've got work to do. Let's get down to it. And so I like a challenge. I would spend a fair bit of my time, I suppose, when people would say, oh, we all thought we'd be in flying cars by now. What have you got to say about that? I'm like, yeah, instead we're sitting in traffic on our phones, it's all very depressing. And I've got students that will say to me, well, I'm not going to, especially the young students, I'm not going to bother to drive. I'm like, why not? They're like self-driving cars. And I'm like, who's going to drive the vehicle to enact the kill switch when it all goes wrong, And they're like, it's not Mad Max. And I'm like, but, we need to cultivate these skill sets. We need to keep doing these things. So I think just handing over everything to technology is never going to be the answer. But as we adjust to it, there's going to be more and more challenges.
Yeah. That's true. Completely true. I agree that. Regardless of, the other topic that I add this one, because if you're like person who's in academics or undergrad, or you're just thinking about becoming a digital anthropologist, when you research online, or especially in the US, there is nothing that you can base this answer on. So it talks about compensation. Like, what can someone expect in terms of compensation when starting out as a digital anthropologist, and how do you that change with experience?
Do you mean financial compensation?
Yeah, like, when you look for, like, say, oh, I want to be a digital anthropologist, you try to look what is, a year you're going to be earning 50,000. But there is nothing online that says, what a digital
Sure.
anthropologist should be earning.
Well,
And that sometimes
I,
be a problem because, maybe you're not being compensated right.
Yeah, I think, with all careers, as you grow your network, you'll start to realize your self-worth. But again, look, this is a very new field, comparatively to everything else. So I think if majority of students, it's study and then your added value of your consultancy perhaps, or your expertise as you start to build it. So, a lot of the time I would be saying to people, well, start your career, say yes to everything, but also you be releasing your own material, your own content about what you think and what you feel. People will find you. LinkedIn is phenomenal for that. LinkedIn Premium, obviously, because you can contact people and they can contact you. But at the moment, it's very good. It's very effective. Maybe there'll be something else that comes up behind it. But I would say also follow those people that you like, and that you can find and that you admire. And talk to them, message them. I really like this post, or this was really good. There's a skill to learning LinkedIn, your engagement and your algorithms and everything else you have to learn. But one of the ways is visibility. So because digital anthropology is new in comparison to other things, you need to see, how can I get my visibility out there? There's a really interesting sort of conundrum when they'll meet you and they'll go, oh, what is it you do? And you say, I'm a digital anthropologist. And they go, oh,
The
and you're
blank
like,
stare.
you know what that is? Let me tell you what that is. And then they go, oh, that's really interesting. So you've got to kind of sell yourself and your skill set. And I think, there are enormous opportunities for people in this field if you can translate what you do to something the industry or society is looking at. So I was talking to a woman the other day finishing her PhD in embodied cognition and AI. And she said, I have no idea how to sell this. And I'm like, if you can translate this into why it's effective or why it's interesting, you can sell it to companies that might, want to have this, or have you as a interesting keynote speaker. No, it doesn't have to be conferences, academic stuff. There's a whole world out there of technological conferences that are, are really fascinating. So I started small. I said yes to everything. I wasn't paid for anything. And now I'm bigger and I'm paid for everything. So it's taken years to get there, and so you kind of have to see yourself as your own personal brand and build up your visibility. No one's going to come in offering you money to your living room. You have to get out there, so that's networking, making those connections, use LinkedIn, start a blog, find your tribe. Look, the old anthropological thing, find your tribe of people and then see who you can connect to outside of that. So it's the rest of the world that doesn't know how useful this could be. But in the next from now till 2050, digital anthropology is having a moment. You've just got to get out there and get into that field.
That is so true. And the last question is, at the end of the day, how do you wind down?
Reading. Reading. And I tend to read things that are as far from anything I'm doing professionally as possible. So I would read, and I would also have a couple of things that would be sort of secret pleasures, absolute trash TV that just gets me out of my head and resets me. Like absolutely trash TV is a bit of a hidden pleasure at the moment, but I always try and read for the 20 minutes before I go to sleep. I think that's really important.
That is so true. Oh, wow. Well, this has been a great interview. I really love and enjoy everything. I think that's one of the reasons we connected. Through LinkedIn. So, it's very important for all people there. That's how we, I literally got into the network with a lot of these people that I'm interviewing. Before I did interview them, I had a relationship such as networking, get to know each other, and we get to collaborate in summer projects. So it's a good idea that when we say network, it really means network. You have no idea who you can, discover. And
yeah.
when I
connect to each other, don't feel embarrassed.
Yeah, when I see Dr. Lollie, when I talk to her, I feel so identified. I feel like I found my tribe because she gets me. She understands the kind of topics I'm talking about and I like. So that's why when you didn't hear me comment much in this podcast because I mean, I'm nodding like my head like toy because I agree with everything and she's saying, and it's true. Like it's completely important in this like fairly brand new yet old field. That is, yeah. So thank you so much for your time. Really looking forward to talk to you soon. And a part two, because I definitely want to do part two interview about this. There's so much to unfold. There's so much to talk about. There's so many things going on right now with technology evolving every second. And I really like your perspective on, the digital anthropology field, the side that you're covering. So thank you so much, Lollie. So see you soon.